My name is Devin Wright, and this speech is titled Inheritance. I've been thinking a lot about the passage of time recently. I've been thinking about how I'm growing up and how my time here at Judson is very quickly coming to a close. I've been reliving a lot of memories, and I remember something that one of my professors told me as a freshman. He said, "Devin, your generation will one day inherit the world. The good, the bad, and the just plain ugly." And, he's right. I mean, existential dread aside, the world will one day be ours to inherit, and unfortunately that means that we will be in charge of fixing its many problems. I'm sure I'm not the only one who looks outside right now and thinks that something has to change. But these issues, many of them are so ingrained in our society, like one big writhing knot. The question is, where do you even start? Some believe that the answer is something we haven't found yet, a missing piece to the puzzle, a loose thread that when pulled will untangle this whole mess and make everything all right again. It's a pleasant thought, but surely something like that doesn't really exist, right? Well, to me, that missing piece sounds an awful lot like a divine savior. So perhaps, if we are to start somewhere, initiate some kind of change that will actually heal the world, perhaps we should start with the church. Because for reasons I'm about to describe, Christianity, especially American Christianity, is going through a bit of an identity crisis right now. And I don't hear a lot of people discussing this topic, though it very much needs to be discussed. To start, our church body lacks unity, more so than our current political climate. Because of disagreements on how we interpret the Bible, we are inherently separated by both denomination and belief. And because of that, we hardly talk to members of other congregations when it comes to matters of Christ. The only time I have ever seen a church invite another in to share their culture is here at Judson. Aside from that, each church is like an island, separate from the rest, and happily so. And what's resulted from all of this is a lack of influence in the community and a lack of power to make an impact on the world. Now, I know what you're going to say. Yes, I know about missions trips. Yes, I know about donations to nonprofit organizations. Yes, I know about food drives and all of the things churches do to try to administer the healing hand of grace. I know. It's not that we don't try, it's that it's simply not enough. Everything that we do, though significant, is like a drop in the ocean compared to what could be done. How can one church possibly hope to drain the swamp and enact substantial cultural change when they lack the resources to stop the water from flowing back in? Megachurches are perhaps the exception to this rule, though, as their reach is wide and they work interdependently with their foundings. But then I read articles titled, "Celebrity Pastor Steals $17 million from Congregation," and I'm not quite convinced that that's the answer either. They seem to have the right idea, but they're going in the wrong direction. Now let's talk about that. Let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. Because on one hand, we have these island churches that stand separate from America's collective culture, but then we have larger sections that I would call mainstream Christianity that seem to have assimilated so far into consumerism that they threaten to deviate from worshiping God entirely. We live in a consumeristic world that focuses on the material. Everything is a product being sold to you by a corporation, and unfortunately, the church is becoming increasingly corporate. We have movies and music that feel like they have been mass-produced in a factory. We have sermons that exclude talks of heaven and hell, sin and virtue, pain and suffering, all in the hopes of being as unoffensive and marketable as possible. Their collective congregations are high on dopamine because they receive pats on the back every time they give to the church. And the media surrounding it all runs on a similar engine of good vibes. Songs never cover any unsavory topics. In fact, the prevailing message is, you are the overcomer. You will get up when life knocks you down. It's all fluff. And what's resulted from this is a lukewarm, skin-deep church culture, where these words of vague encouragement in the songs and the sermons, they are meant to celebrate your accomplishments. After all, you are the protagonist of your own story. But where is God in all of this? Well, he's here. He's in the background. He's supporting you. But he's not the reason that you're celebrating. All of this, everything that I've described, reminds me of the church of Corinthians. The Bible describes how this church was known for being spiritually weak and easily swayed by the opposing culture. And the Apostle Paul writes feverishly to this group, asking that they recognize what is going on and that they change their ways. And I'm sure that while Paul was doing this, his followers were like, hey, why do you care so much? That church is like a world away. Why don't you just forget about them? Let them do their own thing, and you focus on what we have here instead. Well, thankfully, Paul did not take that advice, and I don't think we should either. You think it might be okay to ignore what's going on over there, but over there, the mainstream, they are the most vocal part of this community. They are the face of Christianity right now, and if they fall to worldly desires, if they lose their heavenly luster, then we will be dragged down along with them. Something has to be done. Earlier, I talked about a missing piece to the puzzle, a loose thread that will entangle all of our problems. Well, I have good news, and I have bad news. The bad news is that I don't have a game plan. I mean, I know that we need to abolish the fluff. I think that if we introduce something substantial to the mainstream, something that feels like it comes from the soul rather than from an algorithm, I think that instead of ignoring each other's differences, we should instead come together, put aside what divides us, and band together under the universal idea that Jesus is calling us to do more. I think that if we do both of those things, then and only then can real cultural change be possible. But like I said, I'm just a 21-year-old undergrad. I know what should be done, but I have no idea how to implement it practically. I said there was good news. Do you want to hear the good news? The good news is that despite all of that, I'm not too worried about it either. The other day, I was on the couches right above us, just spitballing questions to my friends. I was asking where they thought the church could be improved, how it could be improved. I wasn't really referring to the Judson bubble. I wasn't referring to this church or that. I was just talking about Christianity as a whole. I expected a standoffish response, but what I got instead was a flourishing conversation. It literally went on for hours. People came and went. I think I had this conversation with like 15 different people. Some people offered their opinions on their way to their next class. And the best part was that everyone had something unique to share, and all of them were excited to finally have an opportunity to talk about it. It was an amazing time. I learned a lot from that discussion. This speech has been heavily modified because of that discussion. I rest comfortably on this issue because I see the future in their eyes, in your eyes. I see a spark in you that I don't often see in people our age. It's as that professor said, we will one day inherit the world, and I am excited for the day that you inherit the church. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, what can I do? I'm just a kid. I'm just a student. I'm too small to make an impact. And that's where you're wrong. We might be students now, but one day we won't be. One day we will have the tools we need. And they say it only takes one voice to start an avalanche. As long as you have that spark, I will still have hope for the future. Just make sure that you don't lose that spark.